Chapter 13:11, 10 Kings of Hell. Chaos looked up excitedly at the fleet of 100 ships. Those were all his accomplishments. In the past, he was a person who only knew how to sleep and made no contributions. Now, he had made many accomplishments. He felt as though he had upgraded and could not wait to tell Lu Shu the good news. The young male companion on the first main ship was called Jiangwenhan, and he had died. The male companions on the ship behind him had left the ship without hesitation. Some of them left with a defensive formation in midair and had extremely good chemistry with each other. If Lu Shu was there, he would appreciate their chemistry. Like the 21 underlings he met on the limestone paths in the palace, he did not leave any traces of evidence behind for his enemies. Without confidence, he would not attack. All these years, they were training every day in the palace of the East capital. This form of chemistry was not developed overnight. To put it uglily, their chemistry was even better than that of the Imperial Dragon soldiers. Their average power was stronger than the Imperial Dragon soldiers, and their chemistry was better than the Imperial Dragon soldiers too. Perhaps, they were hiding a trump card as well. The only aspect that they were inferior in was the lack of manpower. Chaos did not chase after them. Instead, he swallowed the entire fleet of ships in bites and was extremely hyped up. He felt that he did not need to bother about the people who just flew away because when he was released 3 days ago by Lu Shu, he was tasked with destroying the fleet of ships. Chaos remembered very clearly that Lu Shu told him to ensure the ships could not advance any further. Look, nobody told him to kill. Chaos felt that the people whom he had killed were considered extra credits. However, talking about that, although Chaos had reached the Master Realm, he was unable to showcase his powers freely when encountering hundreds of rank 1 experts. Moreover, the male companions were determined to flee. It would be very good if Chaos could kill 10 or 20 of them. The male companions did not intend to fight it out with Chaos. The current fleet was merely the advance party. They did not have to sacrifice themselves to save the aristocrats' troops. This was merely a small proportion of the East region's army. The mission they had received was to fight smartly. They were only needed in the future. Moreover, they were aware that even if there were hundreds of them, it was difficult to kill Chaos. At this moment, Chaos was focused on the ships, and like how Lu Xiaoyu liked to eat chips, it was crispy and tasted good. However, the people on the ship did not give up either. They were on the ship and could not escape. The troops on the ship moved a gigantic crossbow out to defend against Chaos. However, Chaos did not have any special abilities. He was unable to swallow thunder like the king cow. His advantage was his tough skin and a good appetite. With a 1,000-meter-long body, even if he casually touched the water, he could cause all the ships to become unstable. One had to aim the crossbow accurately, yet with Chaos writhing about and being on an unstable ship, it was very difficult to aim. Yet, when they managed to hit him, they realized that the Black Dragon was unhurt. As the difference between their powers was too big, it was no longer possible for them to fight against Chaos. No one understood where Chaos came from. Meanwhile, Chaos also could not understand why the humans were struggling uselessly. Yet, at this moment, the people on the ship suddenly stopped moving. They stretched their arms behind their backs and tore their skin apart. Their wings appeared and muscles bulged, piercing through their skin immediately. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Chaos looked in curiosity. What was that? Before the blood devils on the ship had transformed, the ship was swallowed by Chaos. Ming Yueya woke up from the darkness. He gradually opened his eyes and felt his body. He did not feel pain. In his memories, he was still in the palace of the East capital and was being tortured by a group of people. Why didn't he feel any pain? Was he dead? Perhaps, a dead man would not feel pain. It was good to die too, he did not want to experience the unbearable pain anymore. At this moment, Li Haitan, who passed by the door, saw that Ming Yueya had woken up and said in surprise, "You woke up. Welcome." I heard Zhang Weiyu call you Lord Ming. No, Ming Yueya's situation is still not clear. Ming Yueya did not understand the situation and hence remained humble to be safe. To God Lu, Ming Yueya was their puppet masters, and a subordinate. Yet, to Zhang Weiyu and the rest, Ming Yueya and the rest were people with superior presence and it was impossible to match up to their expectations. Therefore, Zhang Weiyu and the rest used respectful terms to speak to Ming Yueya, Cloudy and Tiger Ji. However, Ming Yueya felt that something was wrong when he heard Li Haitan welcoming him to hell. He looked out at the darkness outside. It really felt like hell. Li Haitan turned and walked out. Ming Yueya stopped him and hesitated. Who are you? Li Haitan said happily, I am King Qin Guang. First time meeting you, greetings. It was over. Ming Yueya was dizzy as he had just recovered. He felt that everything was over. He really was in hell. Even King Qin Guang had greeted him. King Qin Guang was rather polite. Hold on, King Qin Guang mentioned Zhang Weiyu? Ming Yueya knew that Cloudy was targeting Zhang Weiyu and the rest. This was not a big secret for Ming Yueya. If the Dream Chooser had returned to the Luniverse beforehand, Zhang Weiyu and the rest would have been dead long ago. After all, the puppet masters knew too much about the old King of Gods. Ming Yueya thought that Zhang Weiyu and the rest were dead. In fact, in their plot, Zhang Weiyu and the rest were merely a casual chess piece. Whether he was used or dead did not matter. Moreover, he knew that there was a spy amongst the puppet masters. They would definitely die if Zhang Weiyu and the rest were exposed. Therefore, when Ming Yueya heard King Qin Guang mention Zhang Weiyu, it was most likely that he was in hell. Ming Yueya looked up and said, King Qin Guang, may I know? However, at this moment, Li Haitan had disappeared. Nobody answered his question. Li Haitan was happy, he had to relay the news to Great Lord immediately. When Lu Shu entered the house, Ming Yueya was evidently stunned. What king are you? Lu Shu paused for a moment before saying, Yamaraja? From Ming Yueya's distress, plus 999. Lu Shu heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, he could confirm Ming Yueya's identity. After all, when Yu Fuyao handed him over, he was already almost dead and could not identify his identity. If the North region could turn into a ghost town, it was not impossible for Yu Fuyao to hand over a fake Ming Yueya. Nevertheless, he could be assured of his identity now. Chapter 13:12, Big Present. Ming Yueya did not know what to say when facing this group of people, King Qin Guang and Yamaraja. Moreover, the guy who claimed to be King Qin Guang had evidently met him before. And the person behind him. Weren't they Zhang Weiyu, Dong Yi, Lu Yizhao and the Imperial Dragon Soldiers and Imperial Palace Soldiers? The Imperial Dragon Soldiers was established when Wen Zaifu was still teaching them. However, after Wen Zaifu became the Lord of Heaven, the responsibility of teaching the students fell on the Dream Chooser. Although Ming Yueya did not have much interaction with the Imperial Dragon Soldiers, during the hundreds of years in the palace of the King of Gods, it was difficult to miss each other. Zhang Weiyu smiled at the side. Great Lord, stop scaring him. When Ming Yueya heard that, he felt that something was wrong. Zhang Weiyu called the young man Great Lord too? What did he experience? If the young man was Yamaraja, did that mean that when he was in the abyss, Yamaraja had already met him? What on earth? Lu Shu became serious. In fact, he had no time to joke around. The soldiers in the East region had given up on the water route and was rushing over via the land. They had lost intelligence information from the ghost town in the North region. However, the first to arrive would probably be the West region. At this moment, the war was about to start. Lu Shu had to get Ming Yueya ready. He said after thinking, you haven't died yet. As long as I am around, you won't die. When Ming Yueye heard the words "you won't die," he was stunned. He asked, "What did you say?" Li Haitan was impatient. "Great Lord said that you won't die and will live forever." Ming Yueye was speechless. Zhang Weiyu was speechless. Lu Shu was speechless. "Is that how you use the idiom?" He looked at Ming Yueye. Now that the Imperial Dragon soldiers have become a public enemy, the troops of the West region and the East region are about to arrive. Qing Kong has turned the entire North region into a ghost region to train the Blood Devils. Therefore, we have to take the most caution against the North region. The number of Blood Devils that they trained must be terrifying. After he said that, Lu Shu's concealed arrow, corpse dog, seizing thief, sparrow shade and non-toxic appeared in front of him at the same time. They floated quietly, including the gourd. Ming Yueye was lost in thought. "You?" Lu Shu said calmly and looked at the confused Ming Yueye. "You don't recognize them?" Zhang Weiyu probably had not seen the corpse dog and the concealed arrow before, but Ming Yueye, who had accompanied the old king of gods in wars, would definitely recognize them. The magical weapon that floated beside Lu Shu was the power of the king of gods. Ming Yueye said, "How could I not recognize them? I have waited an extremely long time in the dark abyss." There was only darkness and not a single sound. In order to not go crazy, I even learned how to talk to myself. I waited in the darkness just for today. One's wait could be from dawn to dusk. One's wait could be from young to old. However, it was different for Ming Yueye. There was no time, day and night, or the seasons. He could only tell himself in the darkness that the day would definitely arrive again, like how the sun would always rise and shine on the ground, the Lord would come back again. Whatever in the past was no longer important. Ming Yueye looked up at Lu Shu and asked, "Are you the person I am waiting for?" Lu Shu said, "Yes." After Lu Shu said that, Ming Yueye fell to his knees and was so excited that he nearly choked. "I, Ming Yueye, welcome the return of the Lord. I have finally waited for this day to arrive." Lu Shu smiled. "Get up and talk." Ming Yueye felt that he had regained the powerful energy in his body. He asked directly, "Who are we going to kill now?" Lu Shu continued to smile after looking at Lu Xiaoyu. "It's not the problem about who to kill now, instead, we want to massacre." The evil intentions of the god Lu said that he wanted to give Lu Shu a big present. The big present was merely an uncountable amount of distress points. Lu Shu accepted that gift. The rain continued. The troops of the West region continued down the stream on their boats. With 1,000 boats in the river, they looked extremely magnificent. Someone from the Sun family asked beside Sun Xuanwen, "Are you out of your mind? You were mentioning about how you want to suck up to him earlier on and now you want to attack him." Yet, after he said that, he saw a needle from Sun Xuanwen's hair penetrate the skull of the person who spoke. Sun Xuanwen said calmly, "The Sun family only needs one voice. The West region too. My determination is also the determination of the Sun family and the West region." Everyone who heard this shuddered in fear. They felt that Sun Xuanwen had become a different person after the main ship sunk. However, Sun Xuanwen's decision was something that everyone apart from the Sun family liked to hear. That was because most of the people knew that the youth in the inner city was an enemy of the world. 3 out of the 4 regions, North region, East region or West region, did not support him. How would it be possible for the opponent to win in such a battle? Sun Xuanwen said coldly, "Has the water ghost arrived?" "Lord of Heaven, more than 3,000 water ghosts have arrived 20 miles away from the palace. They are ready to attack at any time," replied a person nearby. 3,000 water ghosts meant that more than 3,000 people were controlling 3,000 beasts underwater. Also, the ability of these water ghosts were much better than that of ordinary practitioners. Sun Xuanwen continued to keep quiet with his eyes closed. He was waiting for an order. Like what Lu Shu had predicted, for the battle on the main ship, Sun Xuanwen lost to the evil intentions of God Lu. He had never encountered the powerful individuals of the two realms. Therefore, when he was completely enshrouded in the rules of the other world by the evil intentions of God Lu, Sun Xuanwen knew that he had lost. Sun Xuanwen did not fight all out with the other party because he knew very well that the battle would not end everything. As the West Lord of Heaven, he had become the slave of another. What an abnormal fate, Sun Xuanwen ended up like that despite having plotted for such a long time. Yet, he had no way out. The troops of the West region had stopped hundreds of miles away from the palace. The Longyin River, inner city and the troops of the West region were extremely silent. That was probably the hardest time for everyone. Everyone knew that the Luniverse would see a massacre, but they could not control their fates. They did not even know when it would start. Nobody knew what Sun Xuanwen was waiting for and nobody dared to question. There was a heavy scent of blood on the main boat that Sun Xuanwen was on. Everyone in the Sun family felt that Sun Xuanwen was extremely foreign. 3 days later, when the troops of the East region arrived 100 miles away from the palace, Sun Xuanwen opened his eyes. Attack! Someone took out a bamboo flute and played it while facing the water. The bamboo flute glowed in green and waves could be seen forming in the water. The waves moved through the plants and fish in the water and ended up in the ears of the water ghosts. Chapter 13:13, The Fall of the Palace. The water ghosts, who had been hiding underwater for a long time, did not seem to need to go above water in order to breathe. When sound waves from dozens of kilometers away transmitted over, they laughed. Suddenly, four veins appeared at the sides of their necks. The veins looked like the gills of fish. The gills opened and closed. They took in water, absorbed the oxygen, and released the water. These people had completely changed their body structure. They could now live underwater. These water ghosts had been waiting quietly underwater, like statues that had dropped into the water. Suddenly, a school of fish swam past them. They followed the fish before capturing them. The water ghosts bit the fish. The blood of over 3,000 fish flowed out as they died. Their blood instantly dyed the clear waters red. The water ghosts chewed the meat from their stomachs. Then, they tossed the dead fish to their horses. At that moment, the beasts they were sitting on all opened their red eyes. Jets of water flared out from their nostrils. The beasts opened their mouths wide and swallowed the fish. Their legs kicked against the riverbed. They flew forwards like arrows. These beasts resembled Qilin 1. Each creature had the mouth of a dragon, the head of a lion, the scales of a fish, the tail of a cow, the claws of a tiger, and the horns of a deer. It was as if their entire body was made out of bronze. They were unusually ferocious. The water ghosts were very excited. After the war, their relatives could only become fishermen. No one knew their former glory. In the water, they were superior. Of course, they had no other choice. When Sun Xuanwen took over the West region, they had been taken by him as his slaves. As slaves, they could not fight against their masters. Most of the slave owners Yu Fuyao had sent to Earth were her own slaves. These slaves could also become slave owners. Since there was no way out, they would enjoy themselves. This time, their mission was to head towards the palace. They were to dig up the palace and the inner palace. After they allowed water to flow into the inner city would become their battlefield. In order for them to attack safely, Sun Xuanwen had told them that they would definitely work together with the East region to attack. All they had to do was to break through the city and kill. There was no need to be afraid. The East region's ships and armies approached the palace at almost the same time. Almost concurrently, all the water ghosts were released. Sun Xuanwen walked out of the cabin onto the deck and looked at the palace. He had left this place 1 month ago. Now, he had returned, but his aims were completely different. The water ghosts wildly swam in the water. When they reached the outside of the palace, they sped up. Their massive claws scratched against the city walls. Their greenish-black claws and teeth quickly broke through the city walls like cutting through tofu. There was nothing special about the walls of the palace. It had been laid, brick by brick, by the civilians of the universe. How could it withstand the attacks of these massive underwater creatures? Sun Xuanwen furrowed his eyebrows. Why was it so quiet in the inner city? Did they have no plans of guarding the outer city? If it were him, he would definitely fight for every inch of land. Every step they took back would increase the risk of danger. The silence in the palace was abnormal. Sun Xuanwen knew very well that Lu Shu was not someone who would give up on a fight. Not long after, the city walls of the palace started to collapse rapidly. Parts of the wall fell into the water. The palace had stood in the universe for countless years. Now, it had collapsed. When Sun Xuanwen watched the city wall collapse, it was as if he was watching the passing of an era. Those glory days were no more. The water ghosts retreated backwards and they laughed wildly as they watched the fall of the palace. As ambitious people, was there a greater achievement than destroying the palace? They could not understand why they wanted to submerge the surrounding area of the palace and turn this place into their place of joy. In the past, even if they wanted to attack the palace, they could not. But now, it was different. But when the wall started to collapse, Sun Xuanwen suddenly saw Lu Shu, who was in the inner city, closing his eyes as he stood. Masters could see everything within a 50-kilometer radius. Everyone knew this. The people around Sun Xuanwen did not know what he was looking at, but Sun Xuanwen felt a chill. He could not sense any nervousness from Lu Shu. Besides peace, there was only peace. He could see Lu Shu. Lu Shu could also see him. When Lu Shu felt that someone was looking at him, he suddenly opened his eyes. His field of vision shifted to Sun Xuanwen, as if it traversed through time and space. Sun Xuanwen saw a smile instantly disappear from Lu Shu's face. Then, scattered drops of blood started to form near the palace. It was as if blood-colored flowers were blooming in the water. The water ghosts were dying. Sun Xuanwen could feel this. In this mind, the seals of a slave were disappearing one by one. The seals were like candle flames swaying in the wind. They were extinguished with just one blow. What was happening? They did not see anyone attack. Who had killed the water ghosts? They turned the massive palace into a vast ocean. Why were they doing this? Earlier, everyone had thought that Lu Shu wanted to use water to deter the outsiders. They thought that Lu Shu wanted to use the Longyin River as a moat. But now, everyone realized that they had thought too simply. He had a trump card underwater. Lu Shu's water-type abilities were unknown to the practitioners in the universe. But it did not mean that his abilities were useless if he did not use them. The water ghosts were shocked. They did not see the enemy, but countless comrades were dying in the waters. The beasts they were sitting on were restless and impatient. They wanted to destroy something, but they could not find the enemy. Suddenly, a water ghost felt that there was something in front of them causing the current to flow. They could feel it, but they could not avoid it. This was a master's ability to control water. This was Lu Shu's home ground. The surrounding water ghosts watched helplessly as one water ghost was split into two by an invisible water sword. Its blood flowed out, blurring their vision. They could only sense that danger was everywhere in the water. They were tyrants in the water. Their beasts had always been undefeated underwater. But at this moment, they suddenly felt that they could do so in the water as they had never encountered such a frightening opponent. The water that the water ghosts loved to play in had become their cause of death. It was as if a massive, invisible hand tightly gripped them in the water. In one sweep, dozens of water ghosts and creatures were grasped and killed. Lu Shu looked up and smiled at Sun Xuanwen. Did he think that he would be able to break through the walls with just water ghosts? Did they think that they were invincible after living underwater for so long? It was because they had never met a master who could control water. The frog in the well would say that the sky was vast. Chapter 13:14, A massacre had begun. To Lu Shu, these water ghosts were simply appetizers. But he did not hold back in terms of his water-type abilities. He was going to scare the enemy by killing them. He would let his enemies feel the dangers of the waters they had never felt before. Rain started to fall on the water. The concentrated sound of splashing sounded as if someone was shouting. Underwater, it was blooming. A massacre had begun. Lu Xiaoyu said that if the world was against him, she would kill everyone in the world for him. But Lu Shu felt that even if everyone was expecting him to be the main protagonist of this massacre, he should personally fulfill the death wishes of his enemies. Lu Shu's willpower had been linked with the water. Even without intentionally sensing anything, he knew that the water ghosts were hiding there. Every single corner and every single current was Lu Shu's eyes and ears. He used all of his abilities to control water and turn the water into a massive killing formation. Sun Xuanwen observed this young man from the sky. He was calm as usual. Sun Xuanwen calmly said, "Attack the city. No matter what the price is, we have to destroy the inner city. If you die, then die on the city wall of the inner city." This voice was transmitted to all the water ghosts through the seal of the slave. If they had any thoughts of escaping, the pain they felt was heartrending. The master of the family of water ghosts raised his bamboo flute and started to play it. The beasts that the water ghosts were sitting on instantly went crazy. The water ghosts on their backs almost fell over. The beasts stretched their webbed feet. They were able to cover distances of 100 meters in just one leap. It was as if the sound of the flute had summoned the potential of these beasts. They were much faster than they were before. A water sword slashed at them. Countless water swords were underwater, waiting for them to get closer. But this time, the water sword attacked nothing. The beasts turned sideways and the sword missed them. They were left uninjured. Almost half of the water ghosts were dead. Some of them had still been in shock. Suddenly, they realized that the water swords were not as frightening as they had imagined. This strengthened their desire to live. As long as they sped up their attacks on the inner city, they would have the chance to live. Although they did not know where the water swords had come from, or which expert controlled the underwater world, as long as they had enough people, they still had a chance. Once they broke through the inner city, the armies behind would come closer. Then, they would have the chance to survive. Their initial excitement had been replaced with fear. In times of danger, their fear riled up their spirit. They would either live or die. The group of water ghosts fought to the front as they approached the inner city. They avoided the attacks from the water swords. Every time the water swords brushed past them, they would be so excited that they wanted to shout. The gills on their neck opened and closed rapidly. Every single water ghost used their beasts to their fullest potential. But the next moment, the beasts they were sitting on suddenly stopped. The water ghosts spurred them on, but the beasts started to retreat. What was happening? In the past, no matter what, they had never encountered this kind of situation. Although the beasts were ferocious, they had been raised since a young age. They would not suddenly turn disobedient. The bamboo flute was the treasure of the water ghost family. Since a young age, pain and the sound of the flute had been used to train the beasts and their reflexes. As long as the sound of the flute was present, the beasts would display their true ferocity. Now, the flute had been played. How could the beasts have broken out of control of the flute? Unless something even more frightening had appeared in front of them. The water ghosts were still thinking of ways to regain control of their beasts, but the next moment, a black and massive figure swam past them. The black figure was very mysterious in the water, as the figure was far too massive. What was this? Why was there such an enormous underwater creature near the palace? The beasts they were sitting on were already massive. But the beasts suddenly seemed small in front of this creature. The beasts all started to struggle. They wanted to break free of the control of the water ghosts and the flute. They wanted to run. At that moment, Chaos turned and stared at the water ghosts, as if it was looking at its food. The water ghosts did not struggle. What in the world? It was a dragon. Why was there a dragon in the water? They no longer controlled the beasts they were sitting on. There was only one thought in their heads. Run away. Sun Xuanwen furrowed his eyebrows. He sensed the water ghosts returning. Even if he used the seal of a slave to punish them, it was of not much use. He looked at the master of the water ghost family. What is happening? The master was shocked. We have lost control of the beasts. They are no longer afraid of the flute. They must have encountered something even more frightening. Soon after, Sun Xuanwen sensed that the seals of slaves in his head disappear one by one. It was so fast, as if someone was rapidly collecting them. What was happening? This time, before he could figure out what was happening, his losses were heavy. He suddenly turned around and looked at the inner city. He saw Lu Shu standing on top of a tall wave, as if he was a water god. He was putting his hands together. Then, a wave surged towards the broken part of the city wall. When Lu Shu put his hands together, the wave sealed up the wall. Lu Shu laughed at Lu Xiaoyu. I didn't watch Naruto for nothing. Midwater escape. None of them can even think of escaping. At this moment, the entire palace had turned into a massive water cage. All the water ghosts were trapped and killed inside. The water cage occupied a large area and was very magnificent. Even Sun Xuanwen felt a sense of dread. Lu Shu was trained in swordplay, right? Why did he possess such frightening water-type skills? At first, Sun Xuanwen thought that the massacre occurring underwater was caused by someone in the Imperial Dragon soldiers. But now, he realized that Lu Shu had many secrets he did not know about. Suddenly, a black and massive figure rose from the water. Then, it fell back into the water. Everyone who saw this was dumbfounded. This was their first time seeing chaos. This was also their first time seeing such a ferocious creature. At this moment, the masters of the wealthy families were flabbergasted. So this was Lu Shu's underwater trump card. Not only did he possess master-level abilities to control water, he also had a dragon. Everything their slaves had said was true. They had seen a massive shadow underwater. Lu Shu had never been afraid of the water ghosts. Even the beasts, who had been nurtured by the water ghosts, wanted to run away when they saw chaos. Chaos naturally suppressed other species. Sun Xuanwen was silent. He did not know how many tricks Lu Shu still had up his sleeve. When Sun Xuanwen looked up, he realized that Lu Shu was also looking at him. More accurately, he was looking at the entire universe. Lu Shu's voice resounded throughout the entire palace. Since the entire world wants to kill me, try and do so. I have prepared the most expensive cemetery in the world for you. The city, which had shone brilliantly for an era, will be your gravestone. Chapter 13:15, Trust. The battle in the water made everyone understand why Lu Shu wanted to flood the entire area and why Lu Shu was completely unafraid of the water ghosts destroying the outer city. That was because he was not only a master of swordplay, but also had the skill of controlling water of the master realm. There was originally very few masters in the world, and none of them had the skill of controlling water. Not only was there no such masters in the universe, there were none of them on Earth too. Therefore, Lu Shu had turned the entire palace into his territory beforehand. It was impossible for ordinary masters to beat him in his territory. Especially for these types of large-scale battles, the power of the water made it impossible for anyone to go near the palace. Even if they went in, it was difficult for them to exit. Lu Shu's method of closing the water gates and attacking became the nightmare of ordinary soldiers. They had no way out. Nobody in the universe knew that Lu Shu had this trump card. In fact, when Lu Shu realized that he had to face a real battle, he was deliberately hiding this trump card. Although Lu Shu was not powerful enough to be ranked in the top 3, he was good at bluffing. Ever since his spirit chi recovered, Lu Shu was the best at bluffing. At the start, he kept his aptitude a secret. Then, he kept his realm a secret and then kept his trump cards a secret. When Lu Shu saw others make films, he understood the simplest logic on earth. The enemies he could defeat were surprising and he should refrain from shouting out his tactics when fighting. It was not only awkward but also exposed him to much more danger. Therefore, very few people on earth knew that Lu Shu had the ability to control water. Moreover, the people who were aware about it were people closer to him in the heavenly network. At this moment, when he suddenly took it out, it caught the other party by surprise. Everyone had treated Lu Shu as God Lu. However, God Lu did not know swordplay or how to control water in his past life. How did he manage to transform? That was the reason why the water ghosts had been sacrificed in vain. Chen Zuan mumbled softly, I understand this. When I play games, my character will become more powerful after several transformations. In fact, since a long time ago, people had been thinking about what was the best strategy to attack the palace. It seemed to be getting the Longyin River from the upper streams to flood the palace. This time, Lu Shu got the Longyin River over by himself and there was really a dragon hidden in the river. Everything, including the name, seemed to be karma. Meanwhile, the young man who was the public enemy was the ruler of karma. God Lu named the Longyin River. At this moment, everyone wondered if God Lu had predicted this day to come. Moreover, the dragon was hidden inside the river. After the slave marks of the water ghosts completely disappeared in Sun Xuanwen's memory, everyone saw Lu Shu, who was originally standing on the tip of the wave, being pushed up by the black dragon. The black dragon initiated it and allowed Lu Shu to stand on his head. Lu Shu no longer hid. Instead, he faced the entire world and became the brightest star. However, he never planned to be a king or life savior. He only did whatever he cared about. The water gradually descended like how Lu Shu opened the door to his enemies. However, nobody dared to make any rash moves. The enemies did not only lose the water ghosts but also their morale. At this moment, everyone who attacked the palace should consider a question: how to get rid of the water in the palace. Sun Xuanwen had already sent people to stop the upper streams of the Longyin River to prevent new sources of water from entering the palace. However, the problem was, even if they cut off the main source, it was not possible to get rid of the water which had flowed into the area around the palace in a short span of time. It would be easy if they had a water master like Lu Shu, but they did not. There were restrictions to the airspace in the palace. Even if the walls caved in, the region of airspace restriction would not disappear. That was the rule set by God Lu. Therefore, if nobody surpassed the realm of God Lu, they had to stay put and fight on the ground. However, it was water underneath. If they really began a battle, the rank 1 experts and masters would have to swim over. What kind of situation was that? They would only be courting death. Chen Zuan was extremely happy when he thought about this. Meanwhile, Li Haitan was fidgeting anxiously. When can they get here? The first battle was a problem for Chaos and Lu Shu. Nobody else had anything to do with it. As King Qin Guang of the 10 Kings of Hell, Li Haitan wanted to share some troubles of the Great Lord. However, the enemies were unable to enter. How anxious did he feel? What was happening? Lu Shu smiled as he stood on the city walls. This is only an appetizer. After this, they should be considering how to remove the water. Or else, the masters can only swim over for the battle against us. Great Lord, should we go over and guard the upper streams of the Longyin River? Asked Zhang Weiyu. Ming Yueya, who had regained his powers, said, I can do it alone. Li Liang said, no, we cannot split up now. The water is enough to give them a headache. Nothing will happen even if they cut the upper streams of the Longing River. Now, let's just wait to see where they are planning to release the water to. The place was like a gigantic swimming pool. If they were able to cut off the upper streams and open a source for divine water nearby, the flood would no longer exist. Where do you think they will do it? Asked Lu Shu. The north is the lowest in altitude, so they should start from the north. However, the north region is Qing Kong's territory. They will hurt their allies. Therefore, it is more likely for them to use the divine water in the north to stop Wen Zaifu's troops of the south region. In that case, the troops of the south region would have to cross a lake in order to get over. Li Liang made his own deduction. He had been busy these past 2 days and had finished the simulation of the region around the palace. Everyone could slack off except for him. That was the responsibility of a commander. Great Lord, we cannot allow them to release the water to the south region, said Zhang Weiyu. We are only left with this ally in the entire world. Li Liang added, yes, indeed. If the troops of the south region don't come over, we are left alone with no assistance. However, everyone saw Lu Shu acting as though nothing had happened. Li Liang was anxious. Great Lord, aren't you worried? Lu Shu wondered, why should I be worried? Shouldn't Wen Zaifu be the one worrying? Li Liang was speechless. Zhang Weiyu was speechless. Ming Yueya was speechless. Their great lord was really confident. Lu Shu smiled. He said he is the most reliable, so let's see how true that is. Li Liang suddenly understood. Lu Shu had yet to completely trust Wen Zaifu. Since Wen Zaifu said that he was their ally, he had to prove it to Lu Shu. Lu Shu had to be cautious because he is responsible for thousands of lives and could not hand them over to someone whom he did not trust.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on the show. Try to look to the heavens.